went upstairs and got my Starbucks. I'm just a.
You're a snob.
I am a snob. I am.
Look at that.
Hey, Jay? You shake hands or not?
Oh, yeah.
I'll even need.
Yeah.
Try not to hurt him. Try not to hurt
There's
him.
some mayo, mustard, and ketchup there, but you're
He's like, never mind.
I don't know if I trust a guy that doesn't age.
Yeah, right?
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, April. I've heard your name. Hello. Great. Hi, Greg.
Jeff Conway?
Put on 3 ounces, maybe? That is the hot seat.
Well, Mr. Kufal didn't age.
I'm kind of hoping you would keep that going.
It's like Jack LaLavey,
No.
I know.
There you go.
I didn't break out in a cold sweat before I walked in, so I
Oh.
feel okay. So nice to see some familiar faces.
Well, if you could trim it a little bit.
Okay. I'll work on that.
Any ticks you want to unveil? Okay. Mr. Woller. Good evening. Welcome to La Crescent-Hoka Public Schools. Thank you for meeting with us about becoming our school district's next superintendent. As you may know, we'll be interviewing several candidates tonight, and it is our intention to have second-round interviews on Monday, March 7th. All candidates will be notified by MSBA staff as soon as the school board has finished our first round of deliberations. School board members will rotate asking you questions tonight, and we'll all be taking notes to assist us in our deliberations. Please know we are listening carefully while we write and do not intend to be disrespectful. Also, we have allocated 1 hour for the interview, and our last question will be whether you have any questions for us. You may use whatever time remains for this purpose. We've provided a copy of the interview questions for you. Please note there are 16 questions. And MSBA's representative will notify us when there are 30, 15, and 5 minutes remaining. I'd like to now open this interview by asking the school board members to introduce themselves, starting with Jeff Conway.
Hi, Jeff Conway. How are you?
Hi, Jeff. Nice to see you.
Hey, Greg Stremka.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, I'm April Carlson.
Hi, April.
Wade Welper.
Hi, Greg.
And Eric Morgan.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
All right, take it away, Jay.
All right. Well, so I'm Jay Woller, and date of interview, what are we at here? March 2nd, 2022, and anything else that I need to share on that part? Okay. I'm looking at the question here. Should I start answering the question?
No,
Is that what-
Jeff will ask.
Jeff.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
sorry.
Yeah, he
He
messed
said,
that
"Take it
up. This
away,"
is
and I'm
on
like,
him.
okay.
I have no idea what he did there.
Yeah.
Yes, we also require woodworking projects at the beginning.
I was thinking, okay, maybe
Yeah.
they're just turning it
Can
over
you, do
to
an
me.
can you do an interpretive dance?
Test your reading ability.
Okay, sorry about that.
Then I realized that I forgot my cheaters in the car. So we're gonna
All right.
We will give you a few minutes if you want to go get those.
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff Conway will,
We do expect the superintendent to be able to read.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Jay, can you tell us about yourself and why you're interested in becoming the Crescent-Hoka Public Schools' next superintendent?
Yes. I guess I'll just start by giving you a little bit of background as to my why I was even drawn to education. So I remember, well, I probably don't even remember my first days in a school building, as my mom was a high school teacher. She was a high school English and German teacher. She also was a drama coach and worked in the schools pretty much nonstop. So I think my draw initially was I get to go hang out at school. I get to be a helper. I get to go to a lot of sporting events and games and plays and activities, and it felt like home. So with my mom being in the schools and just our network of people in the schools, it felt like there was opportunity there. And as I worked through school, I found so many opportunities within the school system by being involved in sports and different academics, different programming. at that point, I just was like, this is my place. I feel like this is my place. So with that, I was drawn to be in education because I found myself in a number of coaching opportunities throughout middle school and high school, working with flag football, t-ball, swimming lessons. And I just realized that I'm drawn to this. I'm drawn to working with students and with people and helping them grow and learn. And that really resonated with me. Initially, then, when I went to college, I said, I'm going to break away from that, and I wanted to be a DJ on the radio. And late nights and my lack of a baritone voice wasn't working there. So I needed to, find something that was going to be the right fit for me. And then I took my first intro to elementary education course. And I was hooked because I knew at that point that working with students and that environment was where I wanted to be. So I majored in elementary education and special education. I was a high school special education teacher for several years. Then I moved into a middle school administrator in both Arizona and Minnesota. And then more recently, principal here in La Crescent for 4 years, and then 5 years now in Eastern Carver County School District. And I've learned a lot along the way. I feel really well prepared. And why La Crescent? My blood pressure went down as I came down the valley today. I felt incredibly welcomed here when I was here. My son, I remember he was in second grade, his first day of school in second grade, and then my youngest was a kindergartner at the time. He was sick on the first day of school when we were here. And I'm like, great, we moved to a new town, I'm the principal at the elementary school, and my son's out sick on the first day. And the second grade teacher at the time, her name's Leah, some of you may know her, she had the students write welcome notes to him. And she delivered them to him, and before he even walked into school, he was feeling welcomed here. And that was true for our whole family. And I guess my thinking is, how do we help and continue to foster that for every student that walks through the doors here in La Crescent? And how do we make this a really special place for everyone? And I believe that there's a really strong foundation for that, so I want to be here to help foster that and be a leader within that environment.
Thanks. What have you done to upgrade the educational programs in schools under your leadership, and how have you evaluated the results?
Yeah. Well, currently I'm an elementary principal and also a principal for the Online Learning Academy in our district, so kind of serving dual roles at this point. And I think what has really helped us with that is really listening to families and the community to know what our families and what our community wants. And what they want is really strong programming. And regarding the online environment, there's a handful of people that really felt it was important to have that online experience as well. Now that started with the COVID pandemic. We had 600 students last year in our online programming at the elementary level, so quite a big program. This year it's much smaller. It's about 100 students, but there was still that desire for that program to take place this year. And I guess as far as upgrading, so listening to what our families and our students need, but then just looking really closely at the data, looking at their achievement data, and setting then clear goals based on that data. We've had a number of math and reading goals over the past several years, and we've seen a lot of improvement in our student achievement. So we've done a lot of professional development and support about how do we engage our students more deeply in the content, making them bear the cognitive load, make them the accountable person as far as their learning goes, but then supporting that. So we've really seen a lot of good growth around that. How do we evaluate our results? We do a number of things there. We look at benchmark data, we do progress monitoring as well, and have looked at the results based on here's our goals, here's our benchmarks, are we making progress towards those goals or not? Do we need to make some adjustments or revisions? And then by having that really clear goal and purpose, it's allowed us to then be really thoughtful around our practice and identifying which practices are really making the highest impact and which ones do we need to sunset or which ones do we maybe need to change. So even with the pandemic, I feel really good about our student achievement results, and feel strong that I could bring that same level of support back to the Crescent Hope Elementary, our school system.
All right, we are on question number 6. What are the most critical elements in creating a good working relationship between staff, administration, and the school board?
Well, I think first off, it really boils down to trust and bringing our best to our situations. And I guess I want to do my very best to model that in my own practice and in the work that we do together. I think obviously a high level of communication goes along with that as well. And just speaking honestly and having that honest conversation and knowing that if we are running into challenges or maybe bumps in the road, knowing that with a clear purpose and goals and that trust and relationship, there's so many opportunities for us to keep working through that. So I think that's really critical for a good working relationship. And, you know, I think it's also really important to have that kind of transparency from the board through administration and the staff, and then students included and families as well in that. I think the more informed we are and the more transparent we are, the more we can build that working relationship even as we work through the challenges and the difficulties that we might experience.
Thank you.
Tell us about your previous experience related to directing, planning, building, and implementing a school district budget, including managing the budget shortfalls.
Yes. Well, I have not been in the superintendency role, so some of that would be new to me. But I do know the importance of doing some big picture, macro kinds of planning around the budget. I've been a part of many budget conversations and work within my various roles, but I haven't been the superintendent in that specific example. But I'm thinking from the macro point of view, looking big picture. 3, 5, 10 years, looking at facilities, looking at deferred maintenance, looking at programming and other things that might be coming down the pipe. You know, where are we at from a referendum or bond? What are we carrying as far as debt goes? You know, all those kinds of things as far as looking big picture. And then as we start to drill down, thinking more from a annual budgeting process, you know, working through that process and really vetting through a system, vetting what programs, what opportunities are really giving us a return on our investment. I think it's really important for us to then be able to say, we are confident that we are making gains in this areas because we followed our evaluative process. And be able to say, yes, this is giving us the return we're looking for, or no, it's not. So we need to consider something else in that case. So I think about it big picture, then I start to drill down to more of an annual budget process, working very closely with the business manager, working very closely with the school board and having their involvement, working with the committee that might be looking at finances from a scope and sequence throughout the year on that. Then also being really communicative about where we are in the implementation process, what our needs are with our community, making sure we're having that ongoing conversation so that it's not just a, hey, welcome to the school district and we're asking for money. We want to be really forward thinking on that and building those relationships with our community and being transparent with our community about our successes, the wins we've received due to their commitment, the challenges we continue to face, and really being thoughtful around how do we think think through that and share that transparently with our community. And then as far as implementing a school district budget, including managing budget shortfalls, that's where you have to, I think, be really thoughtful around that return on investment conversation and thinking, are we aligning with our strategic plan, and is what we're planning actually paying off? And sometimes it's hard to do in education, is to maybe sunset things or maybe take something off the plate that just isn't quite making the impact, but that's something that's really important, especially when you're looking at a budget and maybe a shortfall.
All right, thank you. We're looking for a leader who has a record of involvement and visibility in both the school district and the greater community. Provide us with examples of how you'll be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our district and the greater community.
Well, I'm fortunate to have children that are quite involved in their activities. And I live a lot of my life in a hockey arena, or a lot of my life in their activities as well. So by default, I end up going to a lot of activities, whether it be through music or sporting events and vice versa. So there's one thing, but also that I take joy and really enjoy those types of activities and making those connections with people. I really, I guess, pride myself on being approachable and accessible. I've found that it seems that the more education we get and the longer we tend to be in a profession and the more expertise we kind of so-called gain, it at times that person might become less approachable, or maybe be speaking about things in acronyms, which we tend to do in education, or speaking about things on an academic standpoint. And I guess the way I look at it is that's not really, I can go there. But ultimately, it's like, how are we personable and really in working and celebrating and enjoying the time with people? So I guess that speaks a little bit to my involvement and visibility. I know when I was here as an elementary principal, I lived a block from the school building, lived in the community, waved at students as I was mowing my lawn. Really enjoyed the opportunities to be involved in the community, be a part of whether it be the Apple Fest pieces or various celebrations, having different events and activities at our building and across various places in our district. And I would like to take that same kind of spirit or thinking to a district approach, and being very connected to the community, but also thinking about the people that maybe don't have students in the system. My guess is there's 50% or more, or maybe 60% that don't have students in the system. So how do we connect with those people? And my guess is we go to where they're at and have that by joining civic organizations, being maybe part of the Rotary or the Lions Club or other places that we can make those connections, or being there to be part of that, having involvement and or connections with the District 300 Foundation and other things that might be happening that are bringing more resources or benefits to our district. Because I think ultimately people who live in the community want to brag about their school district, whether they have children there or not, or maybe there's a cousin that they might know, but they want to be able to say, I know that this student got this benefit or went on to do this because they went to the Crescent Hoka Public Schools. So I think that's maybe speaks a little bit to that question.
Thank you.
All right. How do you build trust and collaboration within the school district? Provide an example to show how you've done this in your current assignment.
Yeah. Well, building trust and collaboration, I think, starts with being present, listening for understanding versus listening for a response, being interested, creating teams or being a part of teams that have norms that they believe in, that they work together to support and strive to model. As far as a current example, so I'm in a school building now, and the reason why I'm actually kind of looking at positions right now is the building I am in currently is closing at the end of the school year. And that's due to budget constraints, and it's an older building, and just the deferred maintenance is more than the building can really sustain. So with that, it's really been a year of sunsetting in a lot of ways for our students and our staff and our families. And when I saw the position last year, I was interested in looking at that, but I just knew we had one more year left in the building I'm at and that community, and I know that we needed to really be there for our students and our communities. So that, I didn't even go there last year in my mind, but this year we've been really working hard to do that. And how do we transition for our students and our families? So we've been really purposeful this year about creating that transition. So doing all the things from the planning of the facilities to where things might go from a capital standpoint, but also thinking about just the people and setting them up for success, doing a number of parent meetings. We soon will be starting our student meetings around that. We haven't focused on that yet on purpose because we want to give them a chance to just keep living and enjoying their school year. They're thinking about today, tomorrow, and next week, and to think about next year, we just don't want to put them there yet. So we're going to be really thinking closely about that, but that's just an example of just how I'm committed to the people I serve and really want to work to collaborate with them in that transition process.
What would your school board and/or administration say are your strengths and areas for improvement?
Sure. I would say strengths are very personable, driven, willing to listen, willing to work hard, jump in, take leadership roles, take on pretty much anything that the district can throw at me. I really do enjoy doing that. I like staying busy, and I like thinking through new ideas and problem solving, and then working with a team to really bring that through to fruition. So really enjoy that. Potential areas for growth. I would say this is true of probably all of us in the district I work in, and probably true of all of us just in general, is just becoming more aware of maybe our biases. How do we address some of the equity needs that districts might be facing and or students might be facing? How do we ensure that we are meeting the needs of all of our community? So I've done a lot of training this year regarding that, and I feel like I've really grown a lot as far as understanding my privilege as a white male, and knowing that not everyone has that privilege, and how can I support and be there for, kind of like the mission says, all students. And that would be an area that I've really систon for growth in the past year or two, and feel like that's slowly but surely becoming more of a strength as I go.
That's a nice segue to our next question, number 11. It's a two-part question. How will you lead to ensure that the diverse backgrounds of all members in our school community will be heard and included? And how would you create an inclusive learning and work environment for all members?
Well, I think that starts with self and taking time and having that conversation amongst our staff to really learn about and think about all the stories, backgrounds, strengths, challenges, and things that we come with from our own background and our own perspectives as we kind of learn about that. And how does that then, how does that also then resonate, or how do we provide opportunities for our students to do the same thing? Do they see themselves in the curriculum? Do they see themselves being successful in the curriculum or in our school? And do their families see themselves as having that voice and being included and heard? So I think it starts there with the internal, looking inward, and then it becomes a matter of learning about and drawing out that voice from your community. I facilitated a number of groups in our current school setting where we've met with a group of families and a group of business people within the community, and we've really done a lot of work. We've done a couple book studies around that. We know that we have a diverse or growing diversity within our current community, and we want to be mindful of that and ensuring that we aren't creating gaps. Because there are achievement gaps in our district currently, and I think that's true in a lot of places. And part of that is because of the system. So I think we need to be really thoughtful around that. How would we create an inclusive learning and work environment for all members here? I think it's by setting clear expectations that we do ensure that everyone has a voice and are welcomed. And I think it's, doing a lot of professional development and or thinking about how do we help to build relationships while including conversation about maybe background or culture and having those pieces. Because ultimately, I think students learn best if we're making it personal and they're able to bring their own backgrounds, cultures, and understandings to that learning environment.
Thank you.
Well, you kind of touched on this one, but why are you looking to move on from your current position?
Yes. So that's it in a nutshell. I know that the building I currently serve will be closing at the end of the year, which I've known for some time. There's potential for another role within the district I work currently, but I don't know what that is yet. And that little bit of uncertainty, plus the fact that I am currently very intrigued and interested in revisiting the idea of coming back to a town and community that I really know and appreciate is the reason why I'm looking at another position at this time.
Thank you.
Got about 31 minutes left.
31 minutes. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. How would you develop an environment for teaching, administrative, and support staff to achieve new levels of excellence in education for children of all abilities? Give us an example of developing a successful environment.
Well, I think really what it boils down to is the bottom line is, do we have the same goals? I think it's ultimately boils down to what are the goals that we have for ourselves, for our teaching, for our students, and by having those clear goals based on the data and what our needs are, I think that's kind of how we move ourselves forward. So as far as developing an environment for teaching, administration, and support to achieve new levels of excellence, I think it's by having that clear vision, knowing exactly what it is that we're working towards. I think oftentimes what can happen is that we may work to teach our content, or we may work to teach within kind of this scope that I work and maybe not see what the big picture goals are all the time. I think sometimes that can happen. So how do we then have that kind of clearly articulated plan? And as far as developing a successful environment within that, I guess that happens quite naturally through like a PLC process, allowing time and that energy to look at our goals, our practices, the impact we're making, doing classroom visits, visiting and doing like instructional rounds where people are actually visiting their colleagues' classrooms and being able to then have good dialogue around our students making the gains we're expecting or not. We're progress monitoring their success. We're having students involved in that process. They're charting or graphing their own progress towards that goal, so students are involved in that process as well. They're building energy off of that. I think all of those things really lead towards a successful environment that focused on goals and achievement and success.
Thank you.
All right. How would you suggest establishing a reasonable balance between budgeting for needed school district improvements and maintaining the fiscal integrity of the school district?
Well, I think it kind of boils down to kind of that previous question that you had earlier about that fiscal integrity. I mean, it really boils down to strategic plans tell us that this is our goal for our students and their learning. Do we have the facilities to do it? And are our facilities supporting that work, or are there hindrances or challenges with that? So then being really thoughtful around what are the costs for potentially removing those barriers, or maybe changing that from a district building standpoint. But then also thinking about how do we be really thoughtful on our return on investment. So let's see if there's anything else here. Needed improvements. I guess it also boils down to, I mean, not only facilities, but also programming. Are the programs that we have established making the return on investment as well? And yet at the same time, knowing that we need to ask ourselves, what's our student enrollment? What's our projected enrollment? What's the budget look like from a state funding standpoint? What are we doing from a local, how is our local levies or how is that supporting what we're doing, or do we have shortfalls there? So really just being mindful and aware of partnering with that business manager, again, to look closely at the numbers and making sure that we are maintaining a fund balance that allows the board to also make decisions should things come up. So I guess it's also then about asking the community, what's their tolerance for maybe improvements or changes, or based on what their realities are, what do they see as like their vision for success, and how do we help to balance that, I guess, the fiscal reality, and ultimately does it boil down to, do we have an ask of our community, or are they asking us to make that type of commitment? So I guess all those things together really work on trying to find that balance between the fiscal realities and also establishing that highly successful programming.
Describe your approach to people that disagree with you.
I listen. 99% of the time, people have the best interest of their loved ones at heart. If there's ever a disagreement or a challenge, or something of value to them is slipping out of their hands, right? I mean, there's something that's not quite jiving there. So I just need to, I feel like it's important to listen, to understand what they're disagreeing with me about. But at the same time, knowing that, I guess I was thinking more of like maybe a parent type of concern, or maybe a family member. But I guess in other types of disagreements, I think listening, and then also falling back to, did we have an identified goal or outcome that we were both looking for? Were we in agreement on that? If not, what would help us either get there or move in that direction? So really just go through a kind of a problem-solving approach. We also have a document in our district that's been really helpful, I think, for a lot of us as we think about just working through disagreement. It's kind of 4 quadrants, and I wish I could show you, but you'll just have to take my word for what it looks like. But it's basically listen, and are we willing to sit down and listen as we enter into a conversation that we know is going to be challenging? Are we able to learn? Because I think there's something we can learn in every situation that we enter. how are we locating? So locating, like where am I entering to this conversation? What are my expectations? What are my goals? And being really mindful of that. And then am I willing to lead through that and those challenging conversations? So by thinking about those 4 quadrants, that's really helped me, I guess, approach situations, and I know that's helped our staff.
Okay, we are on question 16. Our district has a high percentage of special needs students. How will you improve our special education system? What will be your process? And do you have specific solutions you would like to implement?
Yes. Well, I think a partnership with Hiawatha Valley Ed or other kind of cooperatives in that way are really helpful, because a district this size to do everything on its own is going to be a really high fiscal challenge. And if we have a high percentage of students with special needs, I think we need to look really closely at how do we scale our individualized services, and that's hard to do when you're really talking about maybe specialized services. So in what ways can we partner with other districts or the Hiawatha Valley Ed district? How do we improve our special education system? I mean, ultimately it boils down to identifying what the student needs are so that they can access their education, and then being really mindful of how do we access those dollars to support their work and what they need. And yet being really thoughtful around efficiencies and groupings, ways to do layers of support. How are we able to allow a student to really get the general ed and tier 1 experience, and then also get the supports he or she might need to be able to access that in the classroom or various settings. Specific solutions. I guess I'd like to learn more about what the specific challenges are that you might be experiencing before I have too many specific solutions. I guess I would listen, and I would see kind of where are we, what is our spending in special education, and are we able to become more efficient or better meet the needs of individuals through that process? I know that there's a lot that goes into the special education world, and I feel like my experience as a special education teacher equips me for the conversation with families and staff as far as providing a really high quality education, and yet also being really, I guess, realistic about ways we can do that and the supports we can provide.
Thank you.
What has been the most unpopular decision you have had to make, and how did you handle the reaction to this decision?
Okay, I'm going to think here for a minute, sorry. Well, I don't know that it was my decision, but it was a decision that I feel like I had to live with and be able to help to support, is just the fact that our building is closing this year. And again, that wasn't my decision alone, that's a district decision, but I had to stand by that. And I had to be able to look people in the eye and say, you know, from a fiscal standpoint, the reality is we can't sustain the building we're in right now at the current population growth where we're at. So we just needed to have that conversation. So I guess it's been an unpopular thing that I've had to be able to navigate. So doing that through parent meetings, just listening and understanding has been really helpful as far as letting people have some vent. We've done some listening sessions. We've also done and starting to plan parent meetings in the new building where they're going to be going, so they get to meet the people there, get to see the building, see the facility. We had a number of, we had an on-site session as well where our superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager, myself, the principal that will be in the new building where our students will be going next year, we met and we just did a Q&A. So we did kind of a brief overview with a presentation, and we really tried to build bridges and seeing benefits to the potential change, even though we know like right now it's really hard. So I had many people say that they really appreciated that, and also appreciated getting to know and start to meet some of the new people that they'd be working with, getting to go see the new building that they'd be attending. So I think it's just being consistent, being visible, being willing to listen, approachable, both through written and verbal communication, meetings, et cetera. I think those things all really help to mitigate, at least people are able to understand and feel like, even though this is an unpopular decision, I'm still being supported through the process.
Thank you.
Can you describe a time when you wished you'd been more collaborative with others? What did you do and what did you learn?
More collaborative. I'm going to go back to a long time ago example, and then I'll probably pull up some new ones as I think about it here. But I can remember a time, okay, so this is a high school story, right? But I can remember a time when in high school, my goal was to get, I wanted, to be the running back that got the most yards, right? Or the most touchdowns. And it was kind of really, truly about more of a me thing for a while. And then I observed and I noticed that there was another player on the team who was a year older than I was, and he was so driven and so team-oriented and so willing to cheer for the linemen and cheer for the people that were doing so much hard work that I thought, wow, I'm not seeing the big picture here. And just by seeing that, I think I just changed my viewpoint on participating on a team and being collaborative. So that's a long time ago. But it comes to mind today because I think it made an impression on me. I think there's always ways to be more collaborative. I'm in a small building right now where our team is quite small, so we need to be really thinking together as a team. And, I long for more collaborative conversations because our group is really small right now. So I guess that's something I just continue to strive for because I see the benefit of it, and I see how collaborative process not only benefits just the process, but it ultimately benefits the students because we're going to give them a better product. So I do see the value in that.
All right. What questions do you have for us? And you've got 16 minutes.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity to visit with you a little bit tonight. I think the hardest thing for me is to sit and share for 5 minutes in a row on a single question, because that's really not how I communicate with people. So thanks for giving me a chance to ask a couple questions. I guess I would just start by saying, maybe starting out with any positives or current wins or successes that you're experiencing as a district, or maybe seeing as a school board, maybe what you're hearing in the community, successes and positives that you're hearing around the district.
All right, I'll go. We're wrapping up construction, so I don't know if you got a chance
I did have a chance to drive by. It's a big change,
It is.
which looks nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a definite win. I know I personally am looking forward to just talking about education in a few short months, hopefully, and not government mandated fill in the blank, this, that, or the other,
Yes.
which we're always going to have that because we're a public school, but it's been excessive lately.
Feeling that way.
Yeah, anyone?
I'll take one that you actually mentioned it earlier, Eric, but the success of the staff in getting us through a pandemic and buildings being not available, and it's been a couple tough years, and our staff is still here and they've persevered. And I'm excited to get them a really effective leader that can give them the support that they haven't had.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I've heard and felt that also, that it's been an incredibly challenging year. Here, I'm sure, and everywhere. I think last year, many of us were thinking that we're kind of out of the woods on the pandemic side, right? And we could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're planning, and we're working, and we're doing all these things that are like setting us up for that, and then we kind of slipped back into that, and that was hard, truly hard. So I think, yes, having that conversation and seeing that the staff has really stepped up, because I know they have in the district where I work and the place where I work now too, is really kudos to them for the time and energy that they're able to continue to muster, and it's on behalf of students. So looking forward to that as well. Other things that might be considered like positives or things that are on the radar there?
I think we got a good new AD.
I just heard we hired a good football coach, is that correct?
So
Okay.
we sure need that.
Yeah, so
So-
some good hires.
Yeah, I think we got some good days ahead of us.
Yeah, good, great. How about challenges? Challenges that you see are immediate, and then maybe challenges that we might be facing in 3 to 5 years from, well, you fill in the blank, I guess.
Well, it's education. I mean, we've been focused on so many different, it really, I'm looking for this position to focus on educate. We're here for children. We can't
Yeah.
forget, you only got one chance to educate a child. And this has gotten busy with all this other stuff. And we need to get back to our focus. We got the buildings done now. We do have good staff. I think our relationship with the staff, we went through negotiations. It was a very mutual, came from a point of mutual respect. And I think even with the parents in town, there was we had a little hiccup here and there, but it was still a thing where even those people we had hiccups with, we were still talking to. And it was one of those things where it was mutual respect for the people, and I think we're back to that.
Yeah.
And it's time to move on. Let's worry about educating our children the best we can. That's mine.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
You know, we're teetering on declining enrollment.
Okay.
We're kind of in a bracket, that 1040 to 1070, you
Okay.
know, K through 12. You know, we've got, another win is, by far, we're open enrolling more than we're losing to open
Okay.
enrollment. I think that our Discovery preschool model is definitely a bright mark. You know, we're a bedroom community of La Crosse, and to a lesser extent Winona. So, you know, people are driving through our town to get to work and whatnot. So, you know, I think that, you know, getting them, showing them what we've got, it makes sense for them to enroll their kids here. And so I think that's an advantage for us that I'd love to see us utilize that better.
Sure.
Market it better. Caledonia is, you know, their sports are starting to slide a little bit, so that's good. So that's a win.
No,
They ran
no
out of kings.
competition there.
No, then no conflict of, I wrestled heavyweight for Caledonia. It's okay, I can talk about it.
No more kings left, right?
Yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the next one, we'll put I don't know, anyways. Anyone else?
I'll add one other challenge I think tied to enrollment is affordable housing in our community. It is,
Is there housing ever? Is there any housing?
There is.
One, it's that side of town.
there's housing, but this salary doesn't pay for that kind of housing that's
Yeah,
available.
okay.
So, yeah, it's affordable
So
housing.
affordable
is-
housing, and maybe just housing in general? I mean, is there a lot of inventory to even?
There's a new development going out, kind of toward the golf course,
Oh.
but that would
Less
not be
affordable.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to get new families in town when there's nowhere for them to live, so.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
And one other thing, just from a community standpoint, I personally feel like we've had more modernization or change in the last 15 years than probably in the last 75, starting with the swimming pool, and then the assisted living, and our schools here, and the event center, and Schmitty's has a rooftop on it now.
Nice,
Well, we've got a hotel now.
sure.
We still have one stoplight. It's more than one, it's more than I grew up with, so that's cool. But it's just, I think there's been a lot of progress made, and it wasn't always clean and warm and comfy, but change rarely is
Sure.
that way. And I think that a lot of those naysayers have kind of seen the value and the benefit of what we went through. Well, and then they were putting, I don't know what they're doing down by the, what is that thing there?
It's an
Bike.
overhead, like a bike
Overpass,
walkie
maybe?
Bike
overpass
bridge.
thing.
Oh, that's what that is. Oh, God.
Didn't know we
Crescent
needed it,
bridge.
but why not?
Got
You know, I mean, it's just, it's, you know, stuff like that's happening in town, and
Sure.
and that's, you know, that's attractive for folks. We have good schools, low crime, low taxes. Property values are through the roof, but that's kind of everywhere. We're close to La Crosse. I mean, 4 minutes, we're in downtown La Crosse.
Yeah.
I think we're a very, very, very desirable place to live.
How about for your
afford to live here.
superintendent? What are the attributes and/or skill sets that are really important to you?
Communication, for me, that and bench press, but no, communication for sure.
I don't know if I can handle that.
He can't either, though. Look at his
Transparency,
wrist.
being a good listener. I think that's key. Utilizing, I mean, we've got very talented people in our buildings, and, you know, we can't be in silos anymore. You gotta use what you've got.
Partner, yep.
Someone else. Anyone else?
I think our interim superintendents we've had, both Mr. Kufal, who was my principal at one time, as well as Dale, have really set the bar
Yes.
for what I, as a board member, like to see with the communications on Fridays of, you know, what are the parents coming to him about, what's going on within the schools. Like, I would love to see that continue. They both were at soccer games, volleyball games, hockey games, hockey matches.
Games. Either one.
And you know, they're out in the restaurants in town with their family members, and you know, we need to keep that going.
Yeah,
That's great to see.
yeah, nice. Anything else that,
I think you got a great staff here, and I think you gotta take the shackles off them. Let them do what they do best.
yeah. Yeah.
Some of the more difficult ones have retired, so it's needed.
Yeah.
Crisis
Well, you know
averted.
what? I think that's.
That
true,
was
though.
shackles, that's all.
Like a damn anchors.
I think there are so many talents, based on my experience here, and just in general, people have so many talents to share, and students do, right? So how do we help our students achieve that, and how do we let our staff be really creative and thoughtful around that, and bringing that to the front? And if there's a talent or a passion area, how do we let that person pursue that, and yet still teach to state standards, you know what I mean? And how do we still have strong academic achievement goals, but then allow that creativity and passion and opportunity for, I'm just thinking community ed and sports and arts and activities and all those things that make people successful adults when they move on from here, and look back on it fondly and potentially move back here because they had such a great experience. Yeah. I've got a couple more minutes, maybe?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you got 5 minutes.
Okay. From a budget standpoint, is there anything that is high on your radar as far as things that you would like superintendent to be mindful of and thinking about?
Well, I mean, it's evaluating our resources and what we can afford. Do we need somebody that would be in charge of curriculum? Do we need our
Sure.
own special education coordinator?
Sure.
How do we utilize this to the best of our ability? And that's what we need the superintendent to do, is work with the teams and the teachers and find out what resources we need to get even better at what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like you're saying, I mean, that there is a cost to that, and yet at times, depending upon the situation, that can be a real benefit because it does also then make, like.
You can leave now. Thanks for coming.
What I meant to say is that by having sometimes those positions in place, again, you have to be able to justify it, right? But by potentially having those positions in place, then the people who have the talent working with the students can really use their creativity and not be using necessarily that time, valuable time commodity, doing some of those other things that might be more systematic or programmatic, if that makes sense. So partnering and then working through that. But again, I know that all comes with a cost, so it's really doing that analysis of, is that something that our district really needs or benefits from, or can really untap some of those things that we maybe are not tapping right now. Okay. Something you are most proud of currently?
All right, I'll go. They always make me go. For me, so I grew up here, graduated from here. I moved away from the community. I wasn't here when you were here. But I've moved my boys back to this community because I am proud. There's some gaps with the school district, and that's why I'm on the board.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. How about from a strategic planning standpoint?
We need one.
We're for
I
it.
mean,
Yes.
it's, in the past, we've used them too. We've done them, and then we're kind of like, good, they're done. I don't know if we've referenced them like we should.
Sure.
I think the last one, expired 2019?
I saw that on the website. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if that was still,
Jesus,
True.
you put that in the website? Thank you, Brittany.
Now, Brittany.
But it's something where I think it should be a working document where we use it and utilize it, and it should be realistic. It doesn't have to be that big.
no, I would agree.
So.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that. I know we're doing some strategic planning work right now in the district I work in. And so we're a district of 10,000 students. So with a district that size, you have to have a solid, and true in all districts, but you have to have a solid strategic plan that allows people to then, like you're talking about, use their talents, skills, and abilities, and we're working together to support the professional development. We're using our dollars as we intended to. We're finding there's a return on investment. So I was just curious to see if that's something that's on the radar or not, how recently that might have been done. Is that something that I can help to support? And I would say I could. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop asking questions for a little bit here, and I'll just say that I'll just wrap up with, I want to thank you for the opportunity. And I know that interviewing is not my strong suit, and sitting here and having a conversation, and I know you are only able to give me so much feedback, and we can only have this much of a dialogue, but I truly do value the time, and I appreciate you willing to listen to that. I know that I sometimes, without having a PowerPoint or something to go through, I kind of meander my way through that, so I appreciate your willingness to listen to my meanderings. And also at the same time, I do feel prepared. I know I have 25 plus years of experience in education, prepared me for the tough conversations, the strong work for planning and implementing goals, working towards really improving student achievement. And I just thank you for the opportunity to bring that here and participate and really embrace and potentially reestablish, I guess, in a community that I really appreciated and enjoyed. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Very good. He did.
All right.
What's he gonna do here?
That's mine.
Okay, Did you ever make running back? Did you ever make running back? You did? Okay.